Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Empower Her Voices podcast series. And today I am absolutely thrilled to welcome an extraordinary guest for today's episode, Gavin McCormack. In today's episode, this amazing guest is actually going to enlighten us about the true potential of Montessori education, and he's going to debunk some common myths and will inspire us, educators, parents, learners, about what exactly the impact of education could be and how we can actually empower each other, and then a couple of other things related to it. Talking about our guest, he's a globally celebrated educator and a thought leader who has dedicated over 20 years of his life transforming the education landscape. And as the Montessori Australian ambassador, a TEDx speaker, and a co founder of Upschool.co, Gavin is a force in empowering educators and learners to develop real life skills through innovating teaching pedagogy and educational practices. And he is also the educator's most influential educator for 4 consecutive years, starting from 2021 to 2024, and has left a lasting impact in countless communities by creating and building schools, libraries, and teaching centers in Nepal. He's also a best-selling author and senior lecturer in Australia's top-renowned university and one of the Australians' LinkedIn top voices. And he has inspired educators and leaders around the world with his deep insights into Montessori education, inclusive pedagogy, and leadership in the classroom. So today we'll dive deep into his critical journey, his groundbreaking work, and his vision for the future of education. So, Gavin, thank you so much for joining us today. It's truly a pleasure to have someone with you with an incredible experience and a background. So, thank you so much. So, over to you, please. If you can
Yeah,
just
look,
walk us through your entire journey.
wow. Firstly, thank you for the introduction. It's
Mm.
too much, I must be honest with you. It's this job, this work we do in education is not for any purpose other than to follow our passion and do what we were designed to do. I became a teacher 25 years ago, and I'm very fortunate to have found a job which doesn't feel like a job. It feels like just what we were meant to do with this life. But along the journey of being a teacher, you get many opportunities. Opportunities to change lives, and that ultimately is what education is about. You've got the children in front of you, and I've just had a month of no work. In actual fact, I took a month off, and I didn't work for a
Okay.
month. I know we were supposed to meet a month ago, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't meet you in December. I'm not working for a whole month, and I've just been
Mm.
into the Andaman Sea, which is on the west coast of Thailand, and I've spent a lot of time there in the ocean on kayaks and
Mm.
rowing
Oh, wow.
around and whatnot. And while I was there, I was reading Marcus Aurelius's book. Now, Marcus Aurelius was one of
Okay.
Rome's most famous emperors. He was an emperor, but also a
Mm.
philosopher, and he talks about
Yeah.
education in this book a lot. It's called Meditations, and it's a series of letters that he wrote to himself about being a leader.
Mm.
He never meant for them to be published. He never meant for these letters to reach the public domain, but
Okay.
extremely intelligent man and extremely insightful.
Mm.
And when he talks about education, it's really short. He says, the reason that education exists is to
Mm.
produce good people. That's it.
Wow.
And when I thought about that a lot when I was reading it, and he's completely right. All the things we talk about in terms of pedagogy or classroom management or leadership or
Mm.
ownership over the curriculum or choice or agency or freedom or all these things, what do we actually want at the end of it? We actually want, Maria Montessori labeled it as world peace. Marcus Aurelius labels it as good people. And so
Mm.
ultimately, all the work we do as teachers or parents is to produce good human beings. That's it.
Yeah.
We want good people with good
Yes.
values and a strong
Mm.
character and good morals that then will go out into the world as young
Yeah.
human being adults into jobs or leadership positions or fathers or mothers or uncles or aunties. And we want them to be good people who will do good things. And that's, when you strip it all back, you get to that every time. And I
Mhm.
think anyone listening to this, any teachers or parents who are wondering, what can I do? What should I change? What kind of curriculum should I write? What kind of house should I run? Where, what am I aiming for? Well, you're aiming for the children who are looking at you for guidance to learn how to
Hmm.
be a good person. And there's many ways to do that, and we can talk about it in this podcast. But in my journey, in 25 years, I've had luckily lots of good mentors to work underneath
Mhm.
who have shown me those things. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I thought teaching was about, teaching children facts and then testing them and then getting the results and showing my principal that I'm a good teacher. At the beginning, I thought that's what it was.
Mhm.
I've discovered that it's not that. In fact, it's quite the opposite of that. But there are many schools or teachers who are still sitting in that same mindset, unfortunately, because
Exactly.
no one's shown them what the objective is of education.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we're stuck in a kind of perpetual loop, unfortunately, where children are just taught facts, tested upon those facts, and then those facts are presented to people who need to see them and said, well done, this is a great school, you're a great student, and you're a great teacher. But actually, we're missing the point.
Yeah, I was actually, you've mentioned it, this perpetual note by saying this word that, as Marcus said, that the purpose of the education is to produce good people, right? So, talking about those schools, in fact, there are like thousands and thousands of those schools who still believe in this rote learning, in which, as you said, that they're just producing, they're just producing like robots, or the students are put into a race, right? That you have to compete, you have to get this, and then students are labeled against certain scores and grades, and then they are being assessed. Because when we say assessment, what I feel, if please correct me if I'm wrong, assessment is not that you have to put a label in front of a child that, oh, you perform 80%, you perform 90%. Assessment rather is about that you assess the academic or the mental capability of that child at that certain level, that okay, here is he's standing or she's standing over here, and from here we have to move to this milestone or to this thing. So then those schools are not actually following what you just said, that Marcus said they have to produce good people, they are actually producing good robots then. So then the schools who are following concept based learning, I guess there's a huge difference between both of them. So what do you like say about these things?
Well, when it comes to the labels we put on educational pedagogies, experiential learning, concept-based learning, thematic
Mhm.
learning, there is a million words we can put before the word
Mhm.
learning. Uh,
True.
and it's very tricky indeed. But I think one thing we need to get out of, 100% we need to get out of, is
Mhm.
this competitiveness within schools. And, I'll break
Yeah.
it down for your listeners so they can understand where it's coming from. Because,
Mhm.
I've also been that teacher before. And, and I thought I was doing justice to my students, but I realized in hindsight now, in reflection, that
Mhm.
I wasn't, and I certainly wouldn't go down that route again. And so you haven't you have the organization, the OECD. Now, the OECD is a global organization. They release reports continuously and on
Mhm.
global issues. They
Right.
have a lot of data and they have a lot of people to monitor. And every year they
Hmm.
release something called the PISA rankings, the PISA, and it's basically a
Okay.
list of the countries of the world, all 196 countries, and they are
Mm-hmm.
ranked on their academic prowess from top to bottom. Every year they release
Yeah.
this list. And every
Wow.
year you see Singapore up at the top with Taiwan and Macau and
Okay.
Japan. They're always there at the top. And these results come from a test conducted on 15-year-olds on maths and English. And so they conduct these tests around the world. They then report this information to the OECD, and they say these are the top countries in the world academically.
Hmm.
Now, obviously, you can understand from that you're just getting a snapshot of a 15-year-old on maths and English. Now, if you think that education is just about maths and English for 15-year-olds, if you think it's
Mm,
that, then you're sadly
mm,
mistaken. Education is not that,
mm.
because education is preparation for life. Maths and
True.
English are important, but
Mm,
they're not everything. In fact, some of the most successful people in the world left school early or didn't even go to school. So you can
yeah.
survive without those things, but I'm not saying we need to miss those things out. What I
Mm,
am saying is that the reason we test our children in our primary schools and even our preschools is because of this. The OECD released this report, and so countries want to compete against each other to be top of the list. So you have countries competing. Now, if you have countries competing, within those countries, you'll have
mm.
schools competing to be the top
Oh,
school in the country or the top school in the district. Because if
mm,
you are the top school or one of the top schools, then you can
mm,
say to your parents, we are the best school in Hyderabad. We are the best school in Sydney. We are the best school in London.
mm,
Come to us. And so parents will then enroll in that school because they think it's the best school. Is it the best school?
mm,
Well, it might be the best school in English and maths. Doesn't mean it's the best school for your child's character or values or holistic
mm.
development. Doesn't tell you that. Um, then in the classroom, you have children competing against each other to be the top in the class. Now, uh,
Exactly.
let's break that down what it actually means. So if you've
Mm,
got 30 children in a class, all competing with each other, first of all, you're instilling in them a value of competitiveness. I need to I need to be the best. If I'm not the best, then this is not looking good. Now,
mm,
that's not a healthy mindset to compete against other people. In reality,
mm,
all we can do is be better than we were yesterday and compete against ourselves. We know that.
mm.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if your podcast is better than somebody else's. It matters if your podcast improves every time you have a guest. Does it get better each time?
True.
You're not going
True.
to be Joe Rogan overnight. That's impossible. But Joe Rogan
Mm,
wasn't Joe Rogan at the beginning. He had to get better and better as his podcast grew. So you can only be better than yourself. But this is the sad part. The sad part is that when you have somebody who is top country, top
mm,
school,
mm,
top child, you also have a huge group of people who are not top. And those people
mm,
have worked very hard. They've tried their best. They've improved. They've got better. They've showed determination. Maybe they were on 10%, but they got to 11%. Maybe
mm.
maybe they were struggling with their
Yeah.
sentence structure, but they achieved it. Maybe they couldn't add
Mm,
equations together, but they managed it. And so they do not get the accolades that the top child or the top school gets. And therefore you have a huge group of people who are deemed losers or deemed
yeah.
not good enough to be mentioned. And so we have to shift away from the winner or the top or the best and move towards an assessment criteria which says most improved, or you have
Mm,
improved, or you have achieved, you have improved upon yourself, so that everybody has improved in some way. They've grown in their values, they've shown kindness or love or determination or perseverance or persistence, something, so that everybody can say, look, we're all doing the best that we can with the things that
mm,
we have and the situation we're in. I mean,
mm,
who knows what's happening at home for a child? Maybe a child is living in an
mm,
abusive household or has a single mother
mm,
who works 5 jobs and the father is not there. Maybe.
mm,
So how is that child supposed to compete when they're struggling to
mm,
stay afloat? How are they supposed to? It's
mm,
not possible. And so we need to move away from that because it's not healthy. It's not healthy for anybody. The teacher doesn't enjoy it. The teacher does not
mm.
enjoy it when they have to, teach
True.
towards tests. Teachers want to teach from their heart about subjects they care about and they're passionate
Mm,
about. They want to show that excitement to their children so their children can also be excited. They
yeah.
also don't want to teach towards tests because this is not what instills passion and enthusiasm in your class. They
Mm,
want to allow children to have freedom and choice and agency because that's what builds the key skills for the future.
yeah.
But those things are missing simply because we're all competing against each other to be top when being top is actually detrimental. And the sad thing is this: the person who
Mm,
is number one doesn't really enjoy it because, and you may think they do, but they
Mm,
look back at all their friends and the children in their class who are not top, and they realize that two things have happened. They feel empathy for all the children who are not sitting where they're sitting, and they feel sad. Number two,
mm,
they're stigmatized. Now there's just you.
mm,
You're alone now. You're the best. You're number one. You know, it's like stigmatizing a child for being the worst. It's almost the same. So nobody wants to be left out or isolated. Everybody wants to be included. So there's a long way to go. There's a lot of work to do, but
mm,
I think that's where we need to get to if we want to have a well-rounded, holistic approach
mm,
to education, where this mental health and well-being that we talk about, it shouldn't be a subject we teach. It should be something that we live. Let's talk about
something
what
we
we've
should
all
live.
achieved. Let's talk
Yeah.
about what we've all achieved. I'll start. I'm the teacher. It's been really hard this term. My cat has died, and I love my cat so much. I felt a really loss in my heart.
Mm,
But this term, I've tried to work hard and remember the good memories I had with my cat. And they say that to the
mm,
children. The children say, "Oh my goodness, my teacher is a human being who has grief and loss and has struggled this term, but has shown determination to come to school every day and do her best." And then the child says, "So
mm,
it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to not always be on form, but I must keep going. I must keep trying."
yeah.
And so this holistic approach to education needs to be about being human. Like, I am a human,
Mm,
you are a human. Let's be human. Let's show when we're
mm,
vulnerable. Let's tell each other when we're sad. Let's celebrate when we succeed, but we'll do it together. And we won't isolate
mm,
people, and we won't intimidate people, and we won't, make sure that they're not left out or stigmatized. We'll do it together. There's going to be
mm,
times when we need each other all the time. I think if we can get to that, we'll get a real education out of our students where they'll not only be academically sound, but
yeah.
they'll have the values and the character and the spirit that we want in future humans. I think that's where we need to go.
Yeah, so you have actually translated the true essence of being a holistic. We always, so I've also like served in education sector, so we always keep hearing about one thing, that schools believe in holistic development. Schools believe in holistic development. But what you have just said, that, rather than just celebrating success, it's about if the teacher is upset or if she's up to something or if she's in grief, we should acknowledge that. But then there's a lot of pressure on teachers that they just need to be at their best. They can't, like, share their grief, share their anger, share their frustration. They are always being told that when you step into the class, just put a smile on your face, forget about everything and just start doing it. But the way you have actually shared it, it's quite like, insightful perspective. And talking about, what you just said, that for education, it's about more about empathy as well, right? More about creating that individual who can feel for others. So, if we go to work, and then the best thing that you've just explained, so I've also, like, kind of, there was some ambiguities in my mind, that it's a top to bottom approach. That first the countries are competing, then comes to schools, and then the third layer is it comes to the students. So yes, by default, when we also step into our professional life, so we also kind of compete with other colleagues. Oh, okay, I've scored best, I'm the best. And then it goes on and on to the generations, and which is very unfortunate. So you have actually identified the root problem, what's at the grassroots problem that we need to address. So it's, I guess, about the approach that we need to change. And so I was just wondering that once you were saying this, we had a conversation about Montessori, right? So if I talk about Pakistan, and if I talk about, a couple of schools in UK as well, with whom we used to have affiliations and this. So whenever this word comes, Montessori, particularly Montessori. So there's this perception, a very, very strong perception, not in fact perception, it's a statement. Oh, Montessori means the earliest education, which consists of either 3 years or 4 years, starting from pre-playgroup, playgroup, and so on. And there are different labels. Some call it as reception, some call it as nursery. So Montessori means earliest education. But when we just had a conversation, you said no. So that was like a question mark for me, that Montessori is not just early years? How come? So there's a very, I would rather say it's a common misconception or myth that we really need to debunk? And obviously you are going to tell us that what Montessori education is actually. Is it not like just early years?
So it's been mislabeled, unfortunately, in the subcontinent. If you go to India, if you go to Sri Lanka, Bangladesh,
Mm,
Nepal, or Pakistan,
yeah.
you'll find
Same.
Montessori means preschool.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
true, true. Yeah.
um, now obviously Montessori education is a global phenomenon. It's been around for over 100 years now. Maria Montessori created it, as we all
Exactly.
probably know. And the early years are the foundations. There's no question about that. But Montessori
Right.
education was designed for life. In fact, she designed a curriculum for up to 25-year-olds. So this is
Oh.
something that doesn't end. So if you go to Montessori preschool, as soon as you get to
Mhm.
6, you then go to Montessori, what we call cycle or stage 2. And stage 2 is 6 to 9-year-olds. And then from 6 to 9, you go to
Oh.
9 to 12. Then you go to 12 to 15. So we have these cycles of Montessori education. And Montessori designed specific outcomes, specific materials, specific
Okay.
values and character traits, and developmental goals in terms of mindset, in terms of neuroscience, all
Hmm.
around what our children should be able to achieve and who they should be
Okay.
throughout these stages. So it's a misconception, unfortunately. Um,
Mhm.
but yes, Montessori has been labeled as preschool. The
Yeah.
majority of schools in the world that are Montessori are preschool. This is the thing, and I think
Okay.
the problem lies in lack of trained teachers in the primary sector, especially in high school. So there's very few high schools. There are, a medium-sized amount of primary schools, but there are absolutely thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of Montessori preschools. And so you can imagine the
Mm.
association with Montessori and preschool simply because there are more of them. But it's important to be clear that this is a pedagogy that was designed all the way through to adulthood. Can I go back to something you said earlier on about holistic education? I think this is
Yeah,
really important.
exactly. Yes.
So, any parents, any teachers listening to this podcast, when we talk about holistic education, and it's on millions of websites all over the world, millions of schools
Mm.
say this. What does it mean? Holistic, whole child. So, whole
Yeah.
child, emotional. You're talking about developing emotions. You're talking about developing
Mm.
the social side and the academic
Mm.
side. So
True.
this is the holistic approach to education. Now, some of
Okay.
these can be taught by subject matter. You can have
Okay.
subjects in your curriculum that will teach these. But I
Yeah.
think the
True.
most important message that we can share with your audience today is that
Mm.
most of the learning that our children do in terms of holistic education comes from watching the adults in their lives. So,
Yeah.
children
True.
learn predominantly from their role models. And their role models
True.
between, let's say, 0 to 12 are their
Mm.
parents, number one, and their
Mm.
teachers, number two. So your parents
Yes. Yeah.
first, and then your teachers
Mm.
second. These are your
Exactly.
role models. These are the biggest influence on your life. Now, a
True.
child's brain is quite, as we know, it's very malleable in the early years. It's like a sponge, just ready to absorb
Mm.
everything and anything. But
True.
because the brain is so efficient when it comes to learning, it can learn all day, every day from everywhere. It has multiple
Mm.
modes of input. It can hear, it can see, it can feel, it can touch, and it learns through all of these senses. But
True.
because the brain knows that it can learn continuously, it chooses who it learns from very carefully. So it doesn't just
Mm.
learn from everyone, it only learns from people that it trusts. This is really, really
Oh.
crucial. I've just written a book on
Yeah.
this and I've explored the neuroscience of learning to understand how it actually
Okay.
happens. So, what happens is if a child trusts you, they will
Mm.
learn from you. If they don't trust you, they will not learn from you. Their brain goes, no, I don't trust you. I'm not listening to what you say. I'm not going to copy what you do. I'm not going to mimic your behavior. So, with a parent, of course, the child is with the parent from birth and automatically over time starts to trust their parents, their mom, their dad.
Mm.
When it comes to
True.
teachers, very interesting because this is a new person. Who is this person in my life? I don't know this person.
Mm.
I walk into the classroom, this is my teacher, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't trust this person because I don't know them.
Yeah.
So the teacher has to work hard to gain the trust of the child. And gaining trust
Exactly.
in children is not difficult at all. In fact, it's quite easy and involves two really important steps. Number one,
Right.
and this is a bit controversial, but I'll explain it in a minute, it involves physical touch, the first part. Now, physical touch is controversial in schools, of course, because we shouldn't be touching
Mm.
our students. I don't condone that. But what I do
Right.
condone is shaking the hand of your child at the door. So imagine
Yeah.
this, and I'll tell you why this works. So you have many organs in your body. Your biggest organ is your skin. Your skin is your
Yes.
biggest organ, right? And
Yes.
your brain is very sensitive to what your skin is touching. If my skin is touching my hand, my brain at this
Okay.
moment says, "Oh, oh, oh, your skin is touching skin," but I know it's your skin. So
Oh,
there's nothing to do. Now, let's say
right.
that you are with me now in this room with me here, and I shake
Mm.
your hand. Good morning.
Mm.
How are you, Fazai? And you say,
Mm.
I'm great. My brain says, hey, you're touching skin. That's not your skin. That's somebody else's skin.
Somebody's
Now,
else. Yeah.
immediately, your brain says, there are two people now. I know there are two of you. And I
Oh.
know that you trust that person because you're really close to them and you're holding their hand. So, because there's two of you now, not one,
Mm.
you're now 100% more safe than you were one moment ago because there's now two of you. Your brain is a prehistoric
Okay.
brain.
Wow.
It still believes you're in the jungle hunting for food. And if there's two people, well, you're a lot safer than you were if there was one. Okay? If there's 5 or 10 or 15, well, this is insane. You're now very, very safe. So when children feel safe, they are more capable of learning. Easy. If you're safe, you're less anxious. If you're less anxious, your body will release a beautiful chemical into your bloodstream, and that will make you feel safe. It's called the cuddle hormone, and it makes your heart rate become less. It makes your blood
Okay.
pressure lower, and you're ready to learn. So for every teacher watching
Yeah.
this, or any parent, you're struggling with your child, your children do not want to learn, they're struggling with trust. They're having a tantrum. What do? You put your skin on their skin. You shake their hand. You hold their hand. There's nothing controversial about holding a child's hand. We do it all the time on the playground. So you can
Yeah.
do that. For every teacher, when you greet your children at the door, shake their hand. Good morning, Thomas. Good morning, Harold. Good morning, Stephanie. Good morning, Susan. How are you? In you go, in you go, in you go. Shake their hand. Learning will increase, number one. Number two,
Mm.
this is really crucial too, about building trust. When we build trust with children, we let them know we're vulnerable. We tell them that we're real, we're human. So you're sitting in the classroom, you're having circle time. Now,
Okay.
instead of asking the children, how was your evening? What did you do? La, 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 la. First, share something personal, something about how you feel. It doesn't have to be negative, can be positive. But the
Oh.
truth, tell them the truth. Not the whole truth. Sometimes it's not, you can't tell children the whole truth, but tell them
Yeah.
something. Tell them,
Okay.
hey, hello, everybody. Good morning. Before we start today's class, I just want to tell you that, last night there was a mosquito in my bedroom and I really couldn't get to sleep. I had a really, it was a very hard night's sleep. And when you don't sleep, you're so tired. Now I'm here and I'm going to do my best to teach you today. I'm going to try to be inspirational. I just need you to know that last night I was so sleepless and I'm really exhausted. I'm wondering if you could just take extra care today, and look out for
Mm.
me. Now, what you're doing there, you don't really care about them taking care of you. They can't restore your sleep pattern. But what you are
Yeah.
saying, it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to ask for help and tell people how you feel,
Mm.
because your students, when you say go in the classroom and smile and be perfect, right?
Yes.
Teachers, go in there, smile and be perfect. That's not true. You're not
That's
promoting real humanity there. You're not being a real human.
true.
You're not being true.
Mm.
So your students think, well, I have to be perfect too. Even if I have a problem, even if something's going on in my life, maybe I'm being bullied, maybe there's a trouble at home, maybe something is happening with me and I don't feel right. Maybe I feel sad or depressed or anxious or nervous. I can't tell anybody because that's not what we do in this room. We don't tell anyone. We keep it to ourselves.
We
But
keep
when
it
your
to
teacher,
ourselves.
the role model, is promoting this
Yeah.
openness, your students
Mm.
immediately go, oh, it's okay to share how I truly feel because I know in this
Okay.
space, number one, it's
Yeah.
safe, and number two, I will be supported by everybody in this space. And
Yes.
so, if we want learning to be optimal, we
Hmm.
don't decorate the classroom, put up posters, buy new textbooks, and invest in iPads. Those are fine, but the
Hmm.
foundation is trust, actually.
Sure.
And
Yes.
in order to have trust, we need to know how the brain works. And
Hmm.
hopefully that sheds some light to all of our listeners about how that operates. Because if you want academic prowess, if you want your children
Hmm.
to do their best, socially, emotionally, academically, you must start with the foundation. And the foundation is always trust. If they don't trust you, there's no learning happening. Their brain simply will say, I do not trust you. You humiliated me in front of the class by telling everybody that I had the lowest grades. Or you stood me up and
Hmm.
you sent me out in front of all of my peers. You humiliated me. I don't trust you. You might do it again. Right? And if I don't trust you, learning is
Yeah.
off. The brain just goes, no, 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 no.
Hmm.
I don't learn from people I don't trust. And that's just
Hmm.
neuroscience. And if you know that, then you're already 50% of the way there. And I don't want
Wow.
to focus on Montessori education, but Montessori education is based on this, on trust. We never grade children. We never humiliate them. We never raise our voice, ever.
Hmm.
These things do not happen in a Montessori setting. You're trained for these things not to happen. You're trained to share your humanity, who you are.
Who you?
These are all the holistic approaches to education, and this is why Montessori is on the rise, because parents would like their children to go to a place where they feel safe, because safety equals happiness. And what the parents want, they just want their children to be happy, actually, in reality, deep down.
Exactly. And very rightly said, because for parents, safety of their kids is at the top most priority. Yes, you're very right. And given the way you have said it, like you have actually linked it to like neuroscience, which is really interesting perspective that the examples that you're given, that this is how our mind is being informed, or the mind is telling us, so okay, you're in your safe zone, okay, now you're not. So this is quite interesting. So is it like neuroscience is applicable for all the age groups when it comes to learners? Because you have just said that Montessori is not, now I'm also clear. I also used to think that Montessori is just about early years education. So in subcontinent, you have said it's the one stage that we are following in Montessori. There are two other stages as well. So this neuroscience connection that you just said, is it just for the toddlers and for the primary years, or even it applies for those who are in the university or who are in their high school? It goes on for everyone?
Have you ever been to buy a new car from a showroom?
Yeah.
You have.
Yes.
Tell me what the salesman did the first moment you walked in the store. What's the first thing the salesperson did?
Well, first he just asked about, okay, what exactly model would you like to have? What are you using right now? The first question that
Before
he
that,
is greeted.
before that, before that, the minute you walk in
Smile
the
on the
door,
face. Yeah, smile on the face and like, hello. So how are you? Good to see you guys. And then please, what would you like to have? So what car are you using right now? So first it was the connection between, like, with a smile, and then they greeted.
and when they greet you, they normally do one really important thing. They shake your hand. Welcome.
Yeah, they
Welcome to
welcome.
my showroom. You can trust me. Now your brain is saying there's two people. So you're now
Oh,
feeling safe. And because you feel safe, you trust me, and you trust me to be honest in selling you this car, this fridge, this television. Every salesman, without
oh,
realizing it, or saleswoman, you can't argue with neuroscience. This is a fact. Your brain
okay.
is designed in a way that works. And research shows us this. There's an amazing bit of research where
Uh-huh.
a teacher for 30 days stood at the door of the classroom, and she'd
Okay.
selected 15 children. For 15 children, she shook their hand. She got down low every morning, looked them in the eye, and said,
Okay.
"Good morning. How are you? How's it going at home with your new guinea pig? I hear you've got a new
Mhm.
guinea pig. And the child, oh my goodness, my teacher knows about my life. I matter to her, and she's shaking my hand and she's down low looking me in the eye. I feel safe here. For the other 15 children,
Mhm.
in you go, let's go, get your books out, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's
Mhm.
go. No contact,
Yeah.
no shaking hand, no care,
Mhm. Okay.
no conversations. After 30 days, the children were then set up with brain analyzing devices on their heads, and the teacher
Hmm.
proceeded to teach a new concept. The 15
Yes.
children who had been greeted and welcomed and cared for and spoken to, their brain lit up like a fireworks display. It was so ready to learn. And the 15 children who had no connection, their brain was literally off. They may as well have been asleep. So uh,
Okay.
there's lots of research on this that you can go and look up yourself. But it's
Yeah,
very
sure.
interesting that, when schools, if schools want to improve learning, if
Huh.
teachers or parents want their children to be the best they can be, not the best against each other, the best they can be, it's about connecting, it's about building trust, and it's about having a safe space. And there's one thing that makes you feel unsafe. That's the risk of being mentioned in class about not being top of the class or being bottom of the class. That's the risk. I'm going to read your grades out to everybody, right? No one likes
Hmm.
this, not even
One.
adults. It's very
True.
Scary
True.
to have that in your life.
True.
No one likes it. Number two, no one likes being publicly humiliated
Yes.
in
True.
front of the class. Nobody.
Hmm.
And so, if we just show that care and make that connection, our children will thrive. It's just, I mean, it's very simple. It's a very simple concept. But I think, unfortunately, the system is designed in a way where we're all competing against each other, and there's no time for
Yeah.
this. Teachers don't have
Hmm.
time. The schedule is too tight. The curriculum is too busy. The results are needed, and they needed now. And so, get in the classroom and just teach them some facts, and then test them, and give me the results, and then get the kids out of there. And that is
Exactly.
it's quite the opposite of what should be happening. And the people who are suffering or going to suffer will be our students, unfortunately. And so
Unfortunately.
we need to change that. I mean, when you hear it, you like, this is right. This is right.
Hmm.
What you're saying, it's not me.
Yeah.
I'm saying it, but the research is being done by people way more intelligent than me. I'm just reiterating it to you. But I see this. I'm a Montessori teacher. I see this in the classroom all the time. I see this importance of this connection. It's so crucial.
Yeah, but and I'm wondering that if the teacher is going to do what you just said, and after that entire whole 1 year, I was just thinking that what an amazing learning curve the child is going to have because he has created that, as you said, the safe learning zone. I would rather call it as a safe learning zone because the child can now trust the teacher, and it goes on for everyone. This is really, this is like an eye opener. Even if the system, let's suppose, even if the system is not changing, still the teachers can do their bit slowly and gradually, and they can create trust. What you have just said, because the example that you have just quoted, that the real life example, I guess every teacher can somehow implement this in their like classrooms.
Of
I'm
course.
not saying that they can do it at once for all 20 or 25 kids, but they can start from one, two, three, and then they can start creating the impact. So,
Honestly,
exactly.
it,
So,
sorry to interrupt you. If you've got a teacher out there listening and thinking, I'm having trouble with my class, they're
yes.
disruptive, they're not engaged, it's hard to
Hmm.
manage this class. I have to use a lot of threats and force,
Yeah.
and I have to send them to the principal, or I have to use reward charts to give them
Hmm.
rewards. Let's say that we're doing those things. All of them are wrong, and you should not be doing them, right? You shouldn't be sending any
Hmm.
children out of the classroom ever unless they're going
Yes.
to really, really hurt somebody. You should not be
True.
giving them rewards and competing against each other with sticker charts and, let's compete against this should not be happening. And you certainly shouldn't
Uh,
be humiliating them. The secret is actually to connect with them. And it's very simple. For any teacher listening, you're having trouble. Tomorrow morning, stand at the door. And when they arrive,
right.
shake them by the hand. Good morning, greet them.
Mhm.
Find something out about them that's personal to them. Maybe they play soccer. Maybe they've got a pet bird. Maybe
Yeah.
their father is a baker. Maybe they went on holiday recently. Shake their hand. Good morning. How are you? How's your guinea pig? Hey, I heard you scored a goal at the weekend at your soccer match. What was it like? How did you feel? That
Oh,
5 minutes you spend at the door with them lets them know you care. And when you care, they trust you. When they trust you, they feel
yeah.
safe. When they feel safe, they want to be in your company, and therefore your troubles are almost gone. Number two, you share something about yourself. You let them know you're human. They think you live in the cupboard. They don't know,
Mm.
we all know this as teachers. If a child sees you in the supermarket, they hide
Yeah.
behind their mother or father. Any
Yes,
teacher.
generally.
Why
True.
do they hide? I'll tell you why they hide. Because you're now out of context. They think you live in the classroom. They don't know you're a human being or go shopping. They don't know
You
that you
can.
go to the toilet. They don't know that you go shopping, you have dinner, you watch TV, you get sad, you cry. They think you live in the cupboard because that's all you've told them. Every day when you arrive, I'm here, I'm smiling, and I'm here when you leave. Tell them
Yeah.
about the real you. Tell them about your fears. Are you scared of flying? Tell them, when I go on an airplane, I'm very scared. You're scared? What do you mean you're scared? You're a teacher. You're perfect. No, 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 no. We're all perfect, but we all have our fears. We all have our
Yes.
worries, our insecurities. It's okay to have those things. It's okay to have those things. I have them too. Tell me about them. When you tell me, you feel safe. When you feel safe, you're more ready to learn. It's just this is community. This is where we should be going.
Yeah. So it's like, about embracing your authenticity, right? That whosoever you are, you have to embrace yourself and be yourself. Like, I've read this quote numerous times. It was like, be true to yourself. So I
Mm.
guess this is something that you're saying, right? That we need to be true to ourselves while obviously maintaining that balance. As you said, that we can't say everything in front of students, but we need to show them who we are. We need to share a bit of our real life to them. And this is, I guess, I was just thinking that all the things that you're saying, even even 10%, even 10% from each bit is going to be implemented. What an amazing classroom it is going to be. I would
Ah,
rather
yeah.
not label it as a classroom, so it will be a amazing learning hub or a learning center or something like that. So it is really going to create an impact, and I'm sure the schools who are not just for those jazz terms, holistic development and etc. There, if they're actually implement, and there are schools out there who are actually implementing these things, and I'm sure then these are those kids who in the future are going to believe in what you are saying right now. They'll walk the talk, because right now you're saying it, I'm sure that the kind of exposure, global exposure you have, you must have encountered, like, thousands of students and teachers who are in the same league, or the teachers who are being trained by you. Obviously, you are actually inculcating the same pedagogy or the same mindset by keep, and then you, okay, so, talking about this thing, we're talking about the teachers and the impact that they can create. So you have been training teachers for like more than 2 decades now, right? So, what are the kind of fear that you have actually encountered, and then obviously you trained them through it? May it be British curriculum or American curriculum or Australian, whatever it was. So, what were the most like hurdles or the challenges while training teachers from other regions? And then what was that turning point where they actually understood, okay, so this is something that we were not doing it rightly. There were alternative ways, and now after being getting trained, so our mindset has been changed.
Look, I've worked with lots of schools all over the world, of course, and I've done a lot of work in India. Let's go to India because India is an interesting
Yeah.
one.
Right.
India has a big focus on academics in terms of what parents want. And I've
Mhm.
worked in schools where parents will only accept 100%. I will only
Yeah.
accept 100%. If you do not give my child 100%, we're going to another school. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you hear that, you think, well, that's unrealistic. Not everybody can get 100%. What is the
Exactly.
point of even having 100% if everybody gets it? Doesn't make sense.
True.
There
True.
is no, there's no bell curve. If you're
Yes.
going to have if you're going to have some data, then it has to be, associated with the actual abilities of the people involved.
Yeah.
And
True.
so there's a lot of hurdles. usually the hurdles is traditions or what parents
Okay.
require. Parents want
Okay.
this, so schools will give it because they're paying. And if they're paying and
Mm-hmm.
without them, then you can't run the school. So if parents want
Okay.
it, uh, so the first thing is to re-educate the parents on what success looks like. This is the first
Okay.
part. You want
Right.
success for your child? You want a successful
Mhm.
education? Let me tell you what it looks
Right.
like. It doesn't look
Okay.
like 100% and grade A's. That's just one
Yeah.
aspect. When you
True.
break it down and you really talk to parents, what do you actually want your child to become?
Mm.
They say a
Yes.
doctor. I want to be a doctor. But what kind
Mm.
of person do you want? Well, I want
Mm.
him to be kind, and I want him to be loving and honest and trustworthy. And
Mm.
okay, right. So this is what you want. The doctor part, but actually what you want in terms of character. Does this school allow for your child to develop those characteristics, those values? Well, I don't
Mm.
know. Why don't you know? Well, I've never asked. I don't know how to grow those things. So you re-educate them
Right.
on what success looks like. And when they start knowing what they want, schools will start delivering it. So, if parents are going to an open day or to enroll their
Mm.
child, and the principal says, "Are there any questions?" And the parents say,
Mm.
"Yes, can you tell me about how you implement values in the curriculum at this school?" And the principal's
Oh.
like, well, we have some values on the wall, kindness and love, and they're on our logo. No, but I want to know, how do you actually implement them into my child? How do they get to exposure? And the
Huh.
principal has no answer at this point because it's not a thing. The next time he
Mm.
has a meeting, he will have an answer because he knows parents want values.
They want to know.
Your
Yes.
key to changing education is to re-educate parents. Parents went to school, so they think,
Mm.
well, I'm okay because I went to school and I just focused on grades and I did rote learning and I got 100% and I'm okay. We
Mm.
think we know what education should be, but the world has changed. The world is different. Um, so the first thing is to re-educate the parents on what success looks like, and there's many ways to do that, of course. But another way is
Mm.
also with teachers, and I've done this many times, is to put them into the shoes of the children. So
Uh,
if you imagine this, imagine you're running a training course with 100 teachers, okay, for the day. And the teachers are in this hall and you're educating them on different things, blah, blah, blah. They're doing some kind of workshop and they're doing some activities. And then you grade them at the end. And then you
uh,
line them up in the hall and you tell them who was the best student of the day, the best teacher, and the worst. And you point at the
oh.
worst. You say, you, Barbara, you've scored the lowest in the room. You've got a lot of work to do. You really have done terribly today. You haven't paid attention, haven't been listening,
Mm.
you haven't tried your best. But you over here, you're the best. You did so well, well done. And you say, how does everyone feel in the room? And you say it to teachers.
Mm.
You can imagine the
Really
person at the bottom
embarrassing.
is going to be very sad and even maybe
Yeah.
angry at you. They
Yes,
probably hate
exactly.
you. You've
Yeah.
humiliated me. All my
True.
peers and my principal and everybody, I feel humiliated. And the person at the top would also feel really sad for the person at the bottom. Now, the light bulb
Mm.
ding, appears. This is how you feel, and you're a grown adult. You imagine if you're 6 or
Exactly.
7, and this happens to you when you're in your formative years, when your emotions are they're very high, and
Right.
all your feelings. This will live with you forever in your life. The time
Exactly.
when you were humiliated. Remember the saying: children will not remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
How you make
So
them feel,
it's
yes.
about how you feel in that space. And before we ever reprimand or we decide what we're going to do with our students, we must think, how is this going to make that child feel when I do it? And if we ask
Yeah.
ourselves that question, then we can make decisions that are correct in terms of building spaces that are safe havens for our children to learn.
Very well said, and really hope that educators and not just educators and learners, even the parents should understand this, that their kid is not they have kids with them, not like cars were supposed to compete in a race with each other and they have those mechanical kind of spare parts in them. We are human beings. We can be right, we can be wrong, we can be upset, we can be happy. So there are like variation of emotions, as you said, that there's a bell curve. So it's not like every time you're happy you're perfect. We all make mistakes, and we really need to own ourselves. That fine, I really loved it when you said that it's okay not to be okay. So when you like admit this thing that you're not okay, it's fine. So it's, yes, you're right. There's a dire need of re-educating the parents. It's not like just educating. We need to re-educate the parents as well, and it can only be done when the educator, the learner obviously is going to replicate, as you said, whatever we are going to show them. So the educators and the parents need to join hands actually with each other to
Yeah.
understand, and then they can actually create impact for the students. So Gavin, it was really an eye opener as well. Why? Because there are a couple of things in my mind, and I'm sure in the minds of the teachers who are going to watch this episode, because you have actually bifurcated different myths, and then you have addressed it very like logically while emotionally as well. So there was this balance that a human being, if a teacher is going to say, oh, okay, I guess I was not the best one because there's this award in the school, best teacher of the year. So now I can relate that the way we said best student of the year and best teacher of the year, both are feeling the same, but the child is being traumatic that it goes on. So we really need to change this, and I'm sure there's a lot that we can actually learn from this conversation that we just had. And before that, we are going to like wrap up. I really want, if you can just, based on, obviously you have met thousands and thousands of like parents and students and teachers across the world. So what is that one piece of advice, although you have given numerous advices throughout this conversation, but when you said re-educating the parents, right, the educator needs to step in while talking to the parents, etc. But then what does that parent actually need to do while sitting at home? Because they are the first one. When the child is born, the first school or the first learning bit is the parents. Because for at least 2 to 3 years or 4 years, the child will remain with them. So they are the starter one. So what do you want to give them a message? Because then the child is going to carry those things in the school.
Okay, this is a really good question, and it's a good way to finish. So, just to let your everyone listening, 70% of everything you will ever learn in your whole life.
Uh-huh.
This is going to sound unbelievable, but it's not.
Okay.
70% of everything you will ever learn is in before 7 years of age.
Is in before 70%.
Of everything you will ever
Oh my
know, ever,
God.
is in before you are 7. Now, you might think, but what about
Oh,
all the documentaries and the facts I will learn, the books I will read?
yeah, exactly.
There, the things that you will learn between 0 and 7 about reading emotions, reading facial expressions, navigating risk, how to,
Right.
all the things that can't be taught in a classroom. You can't teach these things. They're things that are inbuilt
Yes.
and inherited through your brain's mirror neurons. Your brain has a neuron called a mirror neuron where it just looks and copies
Okay.
what it sees. And
Hmm.
so when you know that children have neurons called mirror neurons, they mirror things, they copy. You know exactly what it is you've got to do. And it's this very famous quote by Montessori: model the behavior you wish to view in your child. So you sit down with your
Wow.
wife or your husband and you
Okay.
say, all right, okay, we've got this little child here and the child is 1 year old. So let's decide what kind of person we want. What kind of person do we want? Let's have this
Right.
conversation over a cup of
Hmm.
coffee and let's
Right.
write it down. And the dad says, look, I want him to be strong and determined. And the mother says,
Okay.
okay, let's write that down. And the mum says, I want him to be kind and considerate
Uh,
and hardworking and empathetic and loving and dedicated, whatever. You write them down.
okay. Right.
And once you've decided what kind of person you want, person,
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
job, person,
Person. Right. Yeah.
your job then, as the adult who the child is looking at, is to be that all the time. So if you've written down kind, okay, you better be kind all the time. So you're walking down the
Hmm.
street with your child. Your child is 2. You're holding hands and you're going to the shop. And you see a snail. And the snail is in the middle of the pavement walking across with its little shell. And you
Yeah.
stop because you have to actively model this very, very carefully. You stop, you say, oh, look, Tommy, look, there's a snail here. Look at this snail. And the child is looking. Maybe the child can't speak yet. Maybe it's just watching. It's a snail. And now this snail is a living creature. And it's got a
Living
shell on its back.
creature.
It's made of calcium. And it's probably trying to get to a plant to have lunch.
Mm.
Very
Yes.
dangerous in the middle of this road. And we could stand on him. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to pick him up really carefully. And you
Mm.
get the shell, and you pick him up, and you show him, look, he's hiding in this shell. He's very scared. Let's pop him over here. And you pop him on a plant, and you
Yes.
say, now he's safe. Okay, let's go. And you carry on walking.
Mm.
Now, what's happened in the child's mind in that little time? The child has now learned when I see something, plant, animal, human, insect, which is vulnerable and in danger, what do? I take
And
care of
help.
it. I take care
Yeah.
of it because that is what I'm learning from the person who is guiding me. I'm learning it.
Mm.
We have to actively and maybe over exaggeratedly play this out all the time. Now, similarly, you're in the car and your children are in the back seat and you're driving the car
Mm.
to the
Mm.
shops. Somebody pulls in front of you and you beep the horn, beep, 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 get out of my way. How dare you guys? Blah, 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 blah.
Mm.
Child is now looking at you saying, okay, when somebody gets in my way, I get
Yeah.
angry and I shout and I
Yes.
scream and I yell. Nobody is allowed
Mm.
to get in my way. Don't they know who I am?
Mm.
We're teaching them to be
Mm.
aggressive. Maybe that person
Yes.
is going to the hospital. They're in an emergency. Their wife is in the
True.
car. They're pregnant. So
True.
they pull in front of you and you say, no problem. Maybe you're on your way to the hospital. And you say it out loud. And the child says, oh,
Mm.
maybe it's important to have empathy instead of having anger. And so the advice is what you are, they will become. Fact. Because they learn from you, teacher
Oh,
or
yes.
parent. Whatever you want them to be, you have to be it. You can't expect anything else from them if you're not doing it yourself. And so you have to be mindful of that. When you know that, then you've got all the keys to success. That's it. You can change today. If you want to
Yes.
start, you start now. You start being kind today, now, actively. You promote it in front of. Don't tell them to be kind. Don't tell them to share. Don't tell them to be
Mm.
patient. Be kind, share your things, and be patient yourself, and they will just be that because you are their role model, and they have a neuron which copies what you do, and that's just the way it is.
Great, great. Gavin, very well said. And, thank you so much for sharing your incredible wisdom, honestly. That's something. So, you have actually, modeled it, the real life learning that we actually have in this podcast. And it was truly a pleasure to have you on our show. And you took time out and you shared all those relatable, I would rather use this word, relatable advices, guidance that even the students, teachers, and educator can actually start practicing. And I'd really like you just said that start doing it from now. If you're not doing it, for example, earlier, just start doing it from now and just role model. You have to model it for your kids. And this is something because I'm also a mother. Like I have two kids, so I was just relating it to my son. He's just like 4 years old. So I was like, okay, fine, I can also do this with him. So
Yeah,
there's a lot of takeaway for me as a mother as well from this episode that fine. So with my daughter or son, I am supposed to do this if they're not, for example, listening to one thing. So I need to actually model it first and then they can do it rather than expecting them, no, you have to do it. So and I'm sure every mother can relate to this. Every mother.
just just use your child as an experiment this week, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, do this.
I
Try
was
it to
I was
yourself.
yeah, I
I
was
call
taking notes in my mind and I was like, no,
it
I have to practice it with my son.
I call it the barbecue test. Okay, you go to a barbecue with your
Okay.
child and your husband or
Right.
your wife or whoever, and your children are playing over there, and you are talking with
Okay.
the adults. So instead of talking with the adults, just watch your child for 10 minutes Watch them.
Okay.
Watch them playing
Okay.
and see
Okay.
what it is they're good at doing and what it is they're not good at doing. Maybe they're not good at sharing or listening or something, right? Find out what it
Okay.
is they need to work on, and then
Okay.
you actively do that in front of your child, right? And when you
Yeah.
do that, you will see that the problem that you saw at the barbecue is now fixed because they will just be what you are. And what they are doing, they've learned from you in actual fact, which is really,
Yeah.
smart.
Learn from us.
They're not sharing their things or they get angry or, well, actually, they learned that from somewhere. It's learned behavior. So where did they get it from? And they probably got it from you because you are the male
Mm.
you are the main impact on their learning. But for
True.
I know we're going to finish now, but what I want to say to all of your listeners is, I've spent with my team at Upschool the last 3 years working very hard to design lots of educational courses and content for parents and teachers, so that all the things we've talked about here, everything we've talked about, is done for everyone listening. So it's free. There's no charge. You go to upschool.co, you create an account, it takes 10 seconds. You will
Right.
find courses on health and well-being, courses on philosophy, literacy, mathematics, science. Everything you can dream of is there, all holistic for your parents to access with their children and teachers. It's a teacher's dream. The curriculum is
Mm.
written, it's all done. And 3 years of very hard work. We have, your listeners in Pakistan will know, a Beacon House school. Beacon House, they come to Upschool for all of their learning. And so, well, not all, but a lot of their learning. So some of the biggest schools in the world, they all come. Ryan Schools International, they come to Upschool as well.
Mm.
So I just want to give a plug there for all of your listeners to let them know that if there's
Yeah.
any resources they need, any courses they want, any access to anything which will help them deliver what we've just talked about, it's all sitting there free of charge on upschool.co,
Wow.
and they can go there
Okay.
now and access that for free.
That's great. That is going to be the best takeaway for the parents and teachers. So what I'll do is that I'll share the link so that any parent and teacher want to access, they can go there. And as you said, they just need to create an account and they can access the resources, right?
Completely
That's
free of
great. So I guess it's a treasure trove for, I'm sure, not guess, I'm sure for teachers and for the educators as well.
I hope so.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
No, there's hundreds and hundreds of courses there. They're all free, and yeah, it really is your treasure trove for teachers. Once they find it, they say, "Oh my goodness, how come I didn't know about this before?" So
oh,
yes, I
wow.
would like to direct your
No, we
listeners
would
to
love
that.
to. We would love to explore that. And Gavin, parents can also access that, or is it just for teachers?
No, 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 no. We have tens of thousands of parents using this at home with their students
Oh,
to give them
wow.
that extra, because sometimes school is not giving them everything they need, or they want to be more involved in their learning, and therefore
Yes.
everything is there and it's explained. Or everything is done. Literally, there's not a finger to lift. You just need to access the information, and then off you go.
Mm. I'll be the first one right after this. I'll just log in, create an account, and I'll just, get it done.
Oh,
That's great. Thank you so much, Kevin. It was truly, seriously, there's a lot. There's not just, I always talk about takeaways from the podcast, but the takeaway from takeaways, I would rather say, from this podcast is going to stay with us for the rest of our life. Why? Because if we are going to practice even not everything but whatever you have said is relatable, but if we are going to, because we are human, we can take step by step, right? And we can implement this. I'm sure there'll be impact in every single house, because every single house has kids and teachers, and in whatever capacity there are people over there. So thank you so much. I really
pleasure.
appreciate your wisdom. And we are definitely, and I really want, as Gavin has already said, there's a lot of things that you really need to model for your kids rather than just giving instructions or guidelines. Just do it yourself, as he said that. And the best thing, if you have noticed, he has also mentioned that 70% of the learning is before 7 years, right, Kevin? Is This was the bit that you have said.
It
So
sounds incredibly. It sounds unbelievable, but it's actually true.
yeah, it's really being a mother. So my daughter is like 11, so my son is 4, so he's still in that category below 7. So I can relate to it. So for all the mothers out there, you should like. So he has mentioned about his book as well. Gavin, go through that, because what I feel, neuroscience is something that we all should be aware of, at least the basics, right? Not because he's a professional. he know a lot more, but we should read about it. Go explore upschool.co, and as he said, there are like thousands and thousands of resources available for the parents and the teacher. And we really need that, because if we need to model something good for our kids, or as a teacher for our students, we first need to get educated. Only then we'll be able to model it for them. So thank you so much for listening to this. And I'm sure if you feel that this thing is going to be helpful for any other educator or for any other parent, feel free to share it with them, because sharing an advice or sharing something which is going to help someone is also going to stay with the person for the rest of their life. So see you again with another exciting episode. And don't forget to log into upschool.co, create an account, and access the treasure trove that Gavin and his team has created over a couple of years. And I'm sure you'll get benefit out of it. Have a nice day. See you again. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.